Next story today I want to talk about is Kotaku in action. Now, Kotaku in Action is a subreddit, which is a forum on the Reddit website. It came out of Gamergate, and it came out as a result of finding out there was a secret listserv where various games journalists were colluding with each other to make sure that certain games were promoted, certain people were denigrated, and a message was consistent across gaming journalism. The response to this was that no, the people who are against this are all racist, misogynist, and they resent the fact that progressive ideas are being pushed forth in this subculture, and it became this huge kind of clusterfuck. One of the big, pardon my French, one of the big consequences of this was Kotaku in Action was launched. This was a subreddit dedicated to people who are organizing and fighting Gamergate. I talk about this a bit in my forthcoming book. And one of the things they did in Kotaku in Action is get together, see how the left is manipulating the subculture, plot strategies against it. There were many kind of false flags, just like in certain alt-right circles. People are, you see these in Trump rallies especially. People show up acting as if they're white nationalists, and the Trump people often, or almost always, kick them out because even if they themselves were white nationalists, they're not going to be standing there, waving literal swastika flags. I mean, it's kind of absurd in that regard. However, one of the administrators, the founders of the subreddit, had a meltdown last week, and he took down the subreddit. And the thing is, and this happens to me a lot on Twitter, if you want to leave, if you want to not be involved with something, that's fine. It's a big world. There's many subreddits. I think, there's a compound media subreddit, which I am scared to look at, and so on and so forth. If you don't want to follow me on Twitter, if you don't want to follow someone on Twitter, that's fine. But the thing is, people have gotten so in the idea that they're living in Yelp, that they really feel that when they leave, they have to leave a bad review, and this is going to affect you in some way. I guess it gives them a sense of feeling powerful, and I guess this is a function of what we're taught in school, that democracy means everyone has to have an opinion on everything, and that opinion is going to have to matter. So here's a summary of his, it's called flouncing, of his flounce letter. He's talking about how Kotaku in Action was formed. He goes, this was a dark time. We were wrestling with how to control hate speech. Because as they started this kind of thing to have integrity in games journalism, it also attracted the kind of people that they wouldn't like, people who are genuinely hateful. I mean, and that's the issue with when you're having the new right fighting the progressives. The progressives can point to certain specific outliers and say, look, this is who you're attracting. And then the new right can say, those aren't real people on our side, but both sides, there's some element of truth to it. So as he speaks, he goes, this was a dark time. We were wrestling with how to control hate speech, not only what was said, but what people could link to. Kotaku in Action became infested with racism and sexism and other isms, though many isms are not real. Interesting side note. And the thing is, as I've pointed out many times, racism just means that which progressives don't like. There's the real sense of racism, which is abhorrent, and as a New Yorker, is something that is just viscerally repellent to me. But there's also the sense of racism being like being against Obamacare, being for, having to show ID when you vote. It just basically means that which progressives don't like. Gamergate forums were created on Kiwi forums and 8chan as a result. This was the best and worst thing. The monster was now a virus. Now, it's interesting because remember when President Trump compared MS-13 to animals, he was denigrated widely by the left. You shouldn't dehumanize people. At the same time, they have no problem using the term virus to describe a kind of a movement. And what else is interesting is that this is just, a virus is a meme you don't approve of. A meme and a virus are the same. A meme is conceptual, a virus is biological, but they both, spread, replicate in the exact same process. And that's why you say, a YouTube video has gone viral. But now he's using it in trying to denigrate this thing as opposed to viral being the goal of when you have some kind of website or movement. He goes on to say, we banned links to and then mention of certain links and topics. Now we became the enemy. This is when I handed over supervisory control. I really wanted to close the sub. I was in the process of until I was superseded not to. I've been wanting to closed every day since I was just too scared of the backlash. How ironic is that? Not very, not even in the Atlanta sense. I've been trying to please everyone when I should be forcing my wants and visions for the subreddit to be executed. I rolled over and played dead. After this, nothing much matters. I was too weak. I let the other mods dictate. And here's the other thing. You have this they've got tens of thousands of subscribers. If you have this big community, which means a lot to a lot of people, at a certain point, it's not really your house. It's not his subreddit. It's a subreddit about an idea and reaction to a subculture. There's a big difference between having a subreddit by President Trump and having a subreddit about President Trump. I let the other, and again, it's never yours. It was always the property of Reddit. That's what people don't understand. When you're putting together these message boards and whatever on some website, you are providing work for the company for free, but it's still theirs. So, the sense of ownership is completely fallacious. My own flaws and faults compromised my ability to raise my iron fist. This was a monumental failure. I'm ASD, which means autism spectrum disorder. There's a shocker for you. And GAD, which is generalized anxiety disorder. Many of you know this. Many of you don't believe this. Oh, we believe it. I assure you. I have allowed myself confidence and an ability to assert myself. He's a proud black woman who don't mean no man. I've been captive my entire life and now have the ability to make my own decisions. Oh my God, that's amazing. And to correct my mistakes, Kotaku in action is a huge one. I think about this daily and dream about it. It's a boogeyman. It's the monster under my head. No, it's the monster under my bed. No, it's the monster in my head. Okay? Until now, Kotaku in action is one of the many cancerous growths that have infiltrated Reddit, the internet, the world. I mean, I'm pretty pompous. It's on brand for me, and it flows ironically, flows naturally. But come on, buddy, get over yourself. I did this. Now I'm undoing it. This abomination should have always been aborted. Ooh, that's and this also speaks to how so many people coming from a leftist perspective, the language is very similar to right-wing stuff. And kind of this eugenics kind of stuff. I may be ASD, but I'm no longer a victim. Shout out to subreddit The Donald. Compared to you, I'm a mini-me. I'm scratching at an itch. So, it's funny because it's like this cancer, and it's also a virus, and it's also an itch. It's just, this guy is not a doctor. I'm scratching an itch, yet you are a viral cancer that is destroying the minds of millions of Reddit users each day, and they allow it. So what's amazing about this is there's this dichotomy that people have between how they view culture. On the one hand, they'll claim that America is the most racist country ever and we're pervaded by racism. Then they'll say, oh, all these people in the alt-right, there's only 10 guys in someone's basement. But then at the same time, you'll have the 40% of people who voted Trump. At the same time, it's like, oh, look, these are just, fringe assholes and they're punching above their weight. And shamelessly, they toggle between the two. And it's also this idea that, like, okay, if you take down this subreddit or if you take down a website, these people are not going to cease to exist. And the idea that, like, if a forum is destroyed, they're not going to find new ways to talk to each other and new ways to communicate. And if anything, it's going to, I don't want to use the word embolden because that's a pejorative term, but it's going to show them that, hey, they are having an impact, that it is getting to people that they hate, that these people are regarded as their enemy. I had Cody Wilson on You're Welcome today, and he was referring freely to people who are for gun legislation as the enemy. And I agree with him completely. This isn't about the point is, on the one hand, there's a claim, let's have this discussion. This is precisely an attempt to eliminate the discussion completely. And this is one of the few places, it is so niche. This is one of the few places where I'm not a gamer, I don't care about gaming per se, but this is one of the few places where gamers could get together and talk about issues like this. I'm sure there's a lot of crappy stuff on there. I'm not a reader of it, but at the same time, I'm sure there's a lot of great stuff, and people get exposed to new ideas and new games and get to support one another. So it cuts both ways. And here's the big punchline. Kotaku in action has since returned, however, thanks to a Reddit administrator. So not only has this guy tried to take it down to absolutely no avail, it's also like, it reminds me of Matt Fury, who created Pepe the Frog, the popular meme, and Pepe's taken on a life of its own. And then he killed Pepe, and he sued people who were using it, saying it's kind of a copyright or a trademark issue. I forget which one is which. And it's like, this is the internet. if the president, including Obama, can't control what is said about them on the internet, do you really think you have this power? And you don't. And it reminds me of back in the day, my mom had AOL and my younger sister would get like these kind of porn emails, and AOL's commercial said, oh, we have parental controls to protect this. And my mom emailed them being like, I'm getting these emails, you have parental controls. And I rolled my eyes at her, but she was right, because she was being lied to. She was being told by AOL that, we're going to keep you away from having this kind of hate mail coming to your kid. And they knew they were lying. They knew they didn't have the capacity to do this. And same thing here. It's like, oh, I'm going to shut down Kotaku in Action, and this cancer, Kotaku in Action is a cancer, and I'm the cure for cancer, whatever.